1920s and everyone is having a great time.
Dancing is at its high point. The war had ended and nothing could be better.
But that wasn't the case for these group of girls. They took what seemed to be an ordinary everyday job and it became an
During the late 19th and the early 1920s, a company named Ondark emerged. Ondark would unnecessarily risk the lives of their workers. The United States Radium Corporation was aware of the dangers of the radium and had the responsibilities to tell their employees of these dangers, but they neglected to do so.
This led to an astonishing amount of health issues and deaths. 5 of the workers eventually sued the U.S. Radium for their wrongdoings and became known as the Radium Girls. The tragedy of the Radium Girls led to the development of workers' and labor laws.
Radium was popularly discovered around 180 years ago by Marie and Pierre Curie in December of 1898. Radium back then was so hard to obtain and only a few people could extract it themselves.
The Curies felt lucky to be one of those people, and even if they extracted such as a small amount, they learned more and more about radium and what it could do.
Radium is a naturally occurring radioactive metal. When exposed to it, the element causes lymphoma, bone cancer, leukemia, and aplastic anemia. The maximum amount of radium the body can take is 0.1 micrograms.
It is so toxic that Marie Curie's note on radium in her journal are unable to be touched to this day.
In this time period, radium was viewed as a miracle cure for people fighting cancer, and it was used in products such as soap, toothpaste, medicine, butter, and cosmetics, all containing radium.
Ondark was a clock manufacturing company and was the only company involved in the intentional poisoning of the girls. Ondark got their names from the glow of the radium, and since it acted as a form of light, they called themselves Ondark.
The corporation was founded in 1914 but was notorious for its operations from 1917 to 1926 in Orange, New Jersey. Ondark gained fame for making wristwatches that would glow in the dark from the radium that was painted onto the clock's face.
The corporation was one of the first to produce the watches, hiring about 70 women to take on the delicate task of applying paint to the tiny dials, painting the number on the watch dials using glow-in-the-dark paint.
A mixture of glue, zinc sulfide, and radium caused it to glow. Ingersoll radiolights are real luminous dial watches. The figures are made of Ingersoll radiolite and the hands thickly coated with it. Radiolite is a substance containing real radium. The radium keeps the hands and figures glowing time in the dark for 12 years or more without need of exposure to light. Inside the factory, the men would be given lead aprons while handling and delivering the radium, whereas the women would not be given anything to protect themselves. And as if that was bad enough, Ondark took away the towels that the women would use to wipe away the radium to make the brushes pointier. Instead, the women had to use their lips to make the brushes pointier. Ondark claimed the towels wasted too much radium. While making the brushes pointier, the women were ingesting the radium. They were told that the radium was safe, but to what expense?
Grace Fryer, a woman who worked for Ondark, and one who would become known as one of the Radium Girls, commented in an article for the Orange Daily Courier. Our instructors told us to point them with our lips. I think I pointed mine with my lips about 6 times to every watch dial. It didn't taste funny, it didn't have any taste, and I didn't know it was harmful. Not to worry, their bosses told them. If you swallow any radium, it'll make your cheeks rosy.
As the girls kept working with the radium, they began to fool around with the radium. They would often paint their faces to scare their co-workers. They were told by Ondark or the higher-ups in the corporation that the radium was safe, so the girls would do this to unwind after a long day at work. However, they would glow bright green. They were all over the newspaper. They got the name Ghost Girl or Radium Girl.
In spite of all this, the girls got radium poisoning, which causes cell mutation, cancer, teeth falling out, and broken bones. Many women had to have their jaws ripped out. So many of them spent the rest of their lives without their jaws. The women working in the radium factory in Orange, New Jersey had the right to know of the dangers of the substances they were not only working with, but ingesting. Had they not been notified of the risks they were taking by using their radioactive luminous paint, the women surely would have had exercised caution and many lives would have been saved.
Into a deadly crisis. A part of a campaign of misinformation produced by the U.S. Radium Corporation, U.S. rejected claims that current and former workers with bone deterioration and other symptoms were suffering from exposure to radium. The corporation planted fake medical examiners to tell the girls that they were completely healthy and covered up any deaths by recording the cause as syphilis.
U.S. Radium hired Harvard physiology professor Cecil Drinker to study the working conditions. His report did not paint a flattering picture of the conditions the women were working under. However, the report that was sent to New Jersey Department of Labor was altered, praising the safe condition. There seemed to be an utter lack of realization of the dangers inherent in the material which was being manufactured.
However, in his unedited report, he stated, "Thus samples collected in the workroom from various locations and from chairs not used by the workers were all luminous in the dark room. Their hair, faces, hands, arms, necks, the dresses, the underclothes, even the corsets of the dial painters were luminous. One of the girls showed luminous spots in their legs and thighs. The back of another was luminous almost to the waist."
The dial painters who filed suits and sought out help worked there between 1917 and 1927. They spent the majority of each day surrounded by radiation and ingesting the radium itself. Among the victims was Grace Flyer. She quit her job at the factory in 1922, but began to notice her health, especially in the jaw region, deteriorating.
She was one of the leaders in the Radium Girls' fight for justice. Fryer and the rest of the victims of the U.S. Radium Corporation deceit died in the 1920s and 1930s from the health issues of radium poisoning. On May 18, 1927, a lawsuit was filed against the U.S. Radium Corporation by a young New Jersey attorney, Raymond Berry, on behalf of Grace Fryer. Along with Fryer, Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, and sisters Quinta McDonald and Albina Larice joined her in her case, each asking for $250,000 in compensation.
Before the trial, 4 radium workers had already died, including Amelia Maggia. While she was still alive, her jaw had become so decayed that it had to be removed. Her official cause of death was syphilis, but when the removed jawbone was exposed to film and developed, it showed radioactivity. Her body was exhumed and confirmed to have high levels of radioactivity. Raymond Berry, attorney for the Radium Girls, stated in the trial, "When you have heard that you're going to die, that there is not hope, and every newspaper you pick up prints what really amounts to your obituary, there is nothing else."
Grace Fryer and the other women were also suffering with diseases and medical issues caused from their exposure to radium. Fryer had lost all her teeth and could not sit up without a brace, and the sisters were both bedridden.
The women were too sick to even raise their hands to take the oath, and by the second hearing, they were too ill to attend. Berry and the 5 girls agreed on out of the court settlement just a few days before the case was about to go to trial.
Each girl received $10,000 as well as an additional $600 per year until death. U.S. Radium would also pay all medical and legal expenses in addition to all future medical expenses.
Berry was not satisfied with the outcome of the trial, feeling that the victims did not receive compensation they deserved. It was later discovered that the judge for the trial was stockholder in U.S. Radium. Walter Lippmann, the editor of New York World, stated, "The women are dying. If ever a case called for prompt adjudication, it is the case of 5 crippled women who are fighting for a few miserable dollars to ease their last days on earth."
All 5 women died within the next few months following the lawsuit. The story of the Radium Girls highlighted the consequences of the wrongdoings of the U.S. Radium Corporation and shed light on other instances of neglect by employers around the country.
As a result of U.S. Radium's deceit, the women suffered emotional and physical damage. Workers' rights is an important issue in our country to this day. The United States Radium Corporation was aware of the dangers of radium, but neglected to notify their employees. Even after Cecile Drinker reported about the poor conditions the women were working in and made suggestions to improve the factories, U.S. Radium failed to do anything to ensure safety of their workers. U.S. Radium had the responsibility to not only tell its workers of the dangers of radium, but to proactively create a safe working environment.
The responsibility for looking after the employees is on the shoulders of the employer. After the case, the Consumers League investigated the other radium dial plants. Florence Kelly, president of the Consumers League, led the investigation with Alice Hamilton. Kelly, Hamilton, and Berry, the attorney for the Radium Girls, met with medical examiners of New York and New Jersey to propose a general conference to Surgeon General Hugh Cumming of the U.S. Public Health Service. The medical examiners signed the proposal for the conference, which was supported by Walter Lippmann.
One of the major long-term impacts of the Radium Girls was the installment of the first safety laws in the workplace. In 1933, the federal government's Public Health Service demanded safe work procedures in luminous dials and watches. In fact, New Jersey currently has some of the strictest labor laws in the United States.
It has been said that the women who died as a result of radiation poisoning are glowing in their coffins and will be glowing for another 1,000 years.
It took tragic events to make people aware of the effects of radium.
But many people forgot this tragic and uncertain time period.